Relations Ministry. She stands here in her own personal capacity. I would also like to introduce you to Mr. Thulani Madondo. Mr. Thulani Madondo runs the Kliptown Youth Foundation in Soweto, and he recently was a finalist in the CNN Heroes Awards. Please help me welcome him as well. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Luvuyo Mandela, who's sitting on this side, a young leader in the social entrepreneur space, having also worked with Cheese Kids, one of the NGOs here in South Africa. Please help me welcome him. I'd also like to welcome Ms. Nelly Swefente, co-founder of Spring Age, an amazing network of young leaders and young entrepreneurs. Please help me welcome her. Have I skipped out anyone? Okay. Just to start this afternoon, I'd really like to kick off this debate with Dr. Mo Ibrahim to give us his views. Dr. Mo Ibrahim started this dialogue on social cohesion on Friday with business, and on Saturday he continued to deliver his lecture in Pretoria, and I believe today you also had a dialogue with women. So I thought that it would be a perfect opportunity for Dr. Mo Ibrahim to just sort of give us his views as a setting to start, and then we'll move along to the panels.
Well, thank you very much. I hope it's working. Yeah. Let me start by really expressing my gratitude and admiration of the Center of Memory of Nelson Mandela and the Foundation. This is the right way to preserve the legacy of the great man. It's not by shouting and dancing and wearing T-shirts. It's really by working actively to bring people together, indulge in a serious discussion and dialogue, trying to find solutions to problems. That is the Madiba way, and I really wish that everybody support this group of people in the work they're doing, and I really wish to invite you to give them a hand. I'm sorry, I'm carrying this heavy thing. I cannot upload it. Social cohesion. Yes, we have been talking about that very important issue, and I will not take you through I've been through a lot of discussion, and maybe some of you watched some of it. I will not try to bore you with all that, but in very briefly, we can have social cohesion when all sections, all sectors of society feel that they have justice, feel they have a shake in that society, they have a role to play, they are respected, they have dignity. When no group is left over because of gender, or because of age, or because of tribe, ethnic roots, or because of religion. Citizenship really ought to be the overriding thing which binds us together. Well, I'm not South African, but if I'm one of you, I will say I am South African first. After that, I can be a Muslim, I can be a Nubian or Zulu, or I can be a fan of Manchester United or Arsenal. I don't know what. You have multiple identities. All of us have multiple identities, but the overriding identity is that of the country. But at the root of that is that sense of belonging, when we feel we are part of that society. I think we have a problem in South Africa, and we need to talk frankly about things. You know, I don't come here to make you feel good or feel happy. That you know, we can't have a discussion. And I found it really unacceptable that you come, you know, you look at the inequality in society here. You look at this Gini coefficient. I think you heard about the Gini coefficient table. For South Africa to be the bottom of that table is the most unequal society on earth. I think that is not nice. unacceptable. And people say, how come after 20 years of independence, still you are unable to tackle that issue? That be something really people need to deal with. And I read a number of questions. I said, why people are unequal? What are the key issues here? I mean, first we had the issue of land, for example. Nothing happened in the issue of the redistribution of land. And there is a wonderful policy which was declared, and I admire it a lot, which is willing buyer, willing seller. But it did not really work because not much has been done. So we need to find a solution which is still within the Constitution, because all parties are citizens and we need to protect everybody, the buyer and the sellers and everybody, but we need to find a solution. And it's difficult, it's tough, but governance is tough. And it has to find a solution for that. That is a big issue, need to be resolved. I also touched that sacred cow. You call it black empowerment. And I asked, the objective of the black empowerment, as I understand, and I discussed that a lot with my friends in ANC many years ago, is to really bridge the gap, to empower black people who happen to be the poorest people in the country, to bring these people up, to empower them. So let's look at the numbers, let's look at the facts, and I would love to see an analysis whether black empowerment really did help people or didn't. And if it didn't, then we should do something else or should adjust it. That is the way really we need to address issues. There's no sacred cow, nothing is off the table. And we make mistakes, that's fine. What is wrong is not to correct our mistakes, otherwise we are really dealing with the issue. Then I think most of my lecture yesterday was devoted to young people. Why? You need to understand that you actually own this continent. You own it. You are the majority, you are the largest constituency in this country. You know what? If you form the party, called it the Young People Party, political party, you will rule every African country. I'm not joking. You are the largest segment of voters, largest block of people. The power is in your hand, and it is your future. This world in 10 trillion is not mine. I'll be happy in my grave, I've gone out. It's your future. So it is you who need to take that in your hands. You need to decide. You should not be waiting to be invited to the table. You need to push your way and to sit at the table and tell us what exactly is the future. What kind of future? You need to understand we have a huge gap between the bulk of our population. Half our people are below 19 years old. Half. Okay? So if you look at the people below 30 years old or whatever, I don't exactly know the number, I guess it's probably 65% or 70%. That is, then look at our leaders. The average age of African leader is close to 70. So we have 70 years old people deciding the future, which they will not see, of all those people down there. And we have a lot of disconnect because we don't understand you. You have to appreciate this. We pretend we are wise people, we are educated, whether we are politicians, business people, whatever. But honestly, we don't understand you. We don't know where you're talking a different language from our language. We have a huge gap between us. You need to bridge that gap so we can really do things which actually you want, which you need. But we cannot do that if you are not part of this. Yesterday I said Barack Obama became president at 46 years old. 47 years old. To run the biggest country in the world, 15 times the economy of all of Africa put together, 15 times. And if the American people elect somebody at 47 years old to run that, and Clinton was 46 years old, even younger. So if people are in their 40s elected to run this, what are we doing? We have somebody at 90 years old starting his term now, next door. Yes? So America is run by a guy who's half the age of the guy who running a small country next door. Is that sensible? No. You know, so we have a lot of issues here. We really need to start address. So it's not about us telling you what to do, because honestly we don't know. All what I know, or I think I know, is that you need to tell us what you want. We're going to have a lot of issues going forward. Unemployment in this country and in all of Africa of young people is at extremely high level. Extremely high level. But the worst to come. Every year there are 30, 40 million young people coming to the work, you know, the market. Where jobs come from? What kind of jobs? In 5, 10, 20 years, what the situation will be? We will have an unemployment of 70%. How these countries will run? I think there's a lot of issues here which people need to, they are very serious issues, and we need to find a solution. I opened the newspapers and I really feel disgusted. You know, the first page, this woman killed the baby of somebody else. This sportsman who shot his girlfriend, was he wearing his artificial limbs or not? I mean, this is like the big issues. Excuse me, the big issue here is unemployment, and that should be the front page everywhere. And we need to see how we're going to solve this.
Sure.
Anyway.
Thank you very much. If we may ask Zhang to add to that, just to give a young person's perspective, really around how do we connect, how do we bridge that gap?
Thanks, Mandla. I think to a large extent that the onus is on us. And as a young person, from the time I started my career, it's always been, I have the double edged sword of being young and being female. And so it's always been that you have to work that much harder. You have to, I mean, they say, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I think that's the classic case with the youth of South Africa specifically, because we were in many ways given a freedom. I mean, the people of our older generations, people who died in 1976, a lot has been given to us. And I think that although we need more systems in place to address ageism, is what I call it, where you may leave the office at midnight, but the perception is that because you're that age, you have to wait it out and have been in the system for X amount of time before you can achieve something. So I think the core thing is that as youth, we have to be willing to go that extra mile. We have to actually command a respect that won't just come and it won't just be given to us. So it's about active citizenship. From my perspective, I'm here in my personal capacity, but I am a civil servant. Servant being the operative word in many ways. You know, it's hard. But that was a decision that I made based on the fact that there's so much that came between us. We're headed towards 20 years, and it may not be the sexiest of occupations, but we need young females, young people in civil society as well as in government who are able to articulate what they want and actually grab it with both hands. Because if we don't do that, then it's not really going to happen.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you, Zhang. Tulani. Tulani, my question is, how is it that we achieved this democracy in 1994, and yet, as young people, we're not aware of the power of our vote? that we continuously go from one year to another year experiencing the same challenges? How are we going to unlock that? If you can just give us your perspective from the community.
My name is Tulani Matondo, and just to answer your question, I think one thing that's going to really help us to succeed is to be active and take ownership of whatever programs that are put in system, because I will really agree with Dr. Ibrahim that I'm one of the people who strongly believe that there's really nothing that can be planned for me without me. And coming from the Kliptown background, you also living in a community where like there's only few success stories from the community on itself. So it's about how do you encourage young people to understand that they can also write their own history. Because as much as all of us are really excited about all the good things that our leaders have done, but it's also important that as young people we also start writing our own history. Because one other thing that I've also seen is that I get very touched when I hear the statistics of young people who never got to exercise their right to vote. Because there are many people who died with a wish just to cast their vote. And I think for me that's where social cohesion starts. Once we start taking ownership of our country. Because if we don't do that, I think that's where we're going to continue to be pointing fingers and doing a number of things that we wouldn't be happy about as young people. And then the other thing is about how do we really build sustainable partnerships, you know, where in most of the times we present ourselves as people who are in need, mostly from the black communities. So it's about how do we also become mutual partners in any kind of a friendship. Because for us in the program, we're currently in partnership with a school in Sending Hill, where like every Fridays we'll send about 40 of our young people to that community. And then on Saturdays they send the same number of kids to our communities. And that for me, that's then we're starting to build something. And then also if we could understand that leadership is not just about positions, it's about actions that we take. Because in most of the times we just want to get to a certain position before we can want to start exercising leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Tulani. Neliswa, if you could just give us a perspective from an entrepreneur, because you work with young people. As an entrepreneur myself, I know the biggest challenges in South Africa is getting finance. A lot of people talk daily around that. Your ideas should be powerful.
Yeah.
They can sell themselves. But I know how hard it is to raise money for projects, for business. So can you talk about some of the challenges and how we think as young people that we will not be able to build, I guess we'll not get to the next 20 years successfully if we don't get this financing?
Yeah, thank you. From my perspective is that the organization that we have is about connecting. So we bring young people together with some people in government and in business and say, let's create a space where these people can collaborate and connect. And when people collaborate and connect, something can happen, you know. So it's not about thinking about the fact that, okay, I've got this idea, but I probably need 2 million, but it's saying, what can I start today that will take me closer to where I want to be? So we create a space where these people think about their own ideas on how can we create employment opportunities. We invite, as young people, we invite the people that we want to work with, as opposed to waiting to be invited by someone to work with them. So we create the invitation, and then from that, we collaborate and we say, okay, what can young people bring? You as business, what can you bring? You as government, what can you bring? And let's create something together, because we can't do it alone as young people anymore. Government cannot do it alone. Business cannot do it alone. So collaboration is the answer, and start from your own space of influence. What are you doing today? What can you do to create this big thing, whatever it is that you want to create? And yeah, and then the rest falls into place. And I think also, speaking of social cohesion, connecting is one of the things. So how do you connect with those people that you are building these businesses with, you know? And if you connect on the most human level, then you can be able to create whatever it is that you need to create.
Thank you, Nelson. What's your perspective on social cohesion?
I think, so you get the invitation from the Nelson Mandela Center of Memory that, can you guys hear me? Yeah. That you're participating on the panel, and as a young person, you do what any smart young person would do, which is you start researching. So I went through definition after definition, and a secret that most of us would like to share and just come clean with is that we spend quite a bit of time behind the scenes actually running ideas off of each other. And the truth of the matter is that depending on your perspective and depending from where you're actually coming from, social cohesion will mean something different to you. So I think my best example of social cohesion is yesterday, not necessarily the games that were put on and the examples that everyone reaches back to, which is the World Cup for the rugby, but I was at my 6-year-old sister's birthday party. And if you want to see active citizenship and social cohesion, watch little kids engaging with one another. So Dr. Ndebele was speaking about identifying who is in a position to sort out your problems. 6-year-olds are very good at doing that. So they're there, they're interacting, and pizza runs out. My sister goes up to my dad, pizza ran out. Please get some more pizza. A new friend comes, everyone comes in, they're excited, they greet the new friend, come and join us, come let's interact. They're sharing ideas, some of them actually didn't go to the same school, so it's how was your week, how was the most recent experience that you've had, shared with us, and let's have a good time. So I think what generally happens from the space of being 6 years old, you have no care in the world, and all you want to do is socialize and actually get to know people on a very genuine platform, is that we spend the rest of our time being socialized. And that's where the problem comes. We spend the rest of our time identifying I'm different to the next person. There was a kid that was there yesterday, and he didn't have much use of his legs, but the kids didn't notice that. I mean, they knew that he couldn't get on the jungle gym like them, and there was no expectation to try to get him on the jungle gym, but he was even chasing them around on the playing field. So that's a recognition that, okay, he's not capable of doing that, not really different from me, he's just another kid that's here to enjoy the same thing. So I think when engaging in the whole aspect of active citizenship and social cohesion, I think it's very important for us to realize what the end game is, what are we looking to achieve, and for as much as we possibly can, shed everything that you've been socialized to think of. I mean, the first thing that we do, and we were joking about this with Zan, is one of the worst thing of breaking the ice as South Africans is we ask each other what we do. So what do you do for a living? You know? And all of a sudden you're creating up a certain barrier whereby if what I'm doing isn't as cool as what you're doing, all of a sudden we're not engaging on an equal platform. You know? Instead of saying, how was your week? All of us have 7 days in a week. You know, so how was your week? What are your experiences and how can we share them? And I think the moment we start engaging each other as human beings, not as titles, as Tulani was saying, not as positions, not as power, the moment we start genuinely engaging one another is the moment you actually start solving a lot of these problems, where it's you having these kind of problems, why? Not, I have this problem and my boss wants this deadline. In the bigger scheme of things, your deadlines don't matter, you know. So how are we helping each other solve the problems and how are we engaging each other?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to the panel. I would like to take this discussion to the floor, perhaps by starting to ask the question from the floor, really, what is it that we can do? Are we able to exercise our authority as young people? Because I kind of get the feeling from just speaking, just hearing the panel, and also with Dr. Mo Ibrahim, that we've been told that we have everything. We're the biggest players in this, we're the biggest shareholder in Africa, but yet we don't have any power. So I'd like to hear your perspective from the floor, how we can link some of the discussions from the panel, that if we shareholders, I'm sure we can certainly define our destiny.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Jacqueline Maboneng, and I'm a self-starter. I am a national young women's leader for an SGR organization, which is an NGO, and I support largely developmental programs for young women. And as a result, may I ask maybe that we start doing the following, because initially when we started, there was the silence that went around the room, and we did not know what was going on. And I said to my friend next door, Mr. Tao, I hope this is in silence to that. May we start by observing at least half a minute in appreciation for that. And I'll continue to ask the question. Thank you.
He's a student. Thank you for that. Thank you.
My question, or rather comment. Okay, talking about social cohesion, it sounds all so fancy, but let's take it 10 notches down and talk to grassroots people who do not make fancy pronouncements such as social cohesion. Context. Professor Ndebele spoke of context. Context to me, as a young girl that grew up on 7176 Vilakazi Street, means my aspiration, or rather my determination, is to be able to embody at least 10% of Tata's essence, and many other, some in this room as well. And when I go home, back home in Orlando West, I'm not going to be talking social cohesion. People are not going to get that. I need to talk the language that people understand. Then, what is the language? What's the alternative language? The alternative language to social cohesion is Ubuntu. And what is Ubuntu? Tata is very passionate about Ubuntu. He advocates Ubuntu. And today, I met up with my senior person within my NGO organization, and I was being brought up to speed. Every day I'm still treated like a student. I get notes, and this person said to me, do you understand that Tata is the second biggest name in the world after Jesus Christ? And every day I wake up and I say, I want to be 10% of Tata. Translate that. Context. Then surely that determination of wanting to be embodiment of Tata has to translate. Therefore, it is a prompt to action. So when I'm back home and we're talking Ubuntu, in Ubuntu, there's a community. Call it a circle. And in the circle, there's a circumference, and the center of a circle is a nucleus that keeps the circle together. Now, what holds the circle together, that nucleus, it's family. A simple phenomenon called family. And family is the elders. The elders, I think we all know the definition of the elders, your parents, extended seniors within the family, and grandparents. And then we've got the role of the young men and the young women. What happens in this community, people meet at the center to cross-pollinate and bounce off ideas of each other with the hope of effecting the same energy in creativity, in innovation, in affirming who we are as Africans. And thus we're able to make a difference within our immediate environment. Now, I've started my own programs. I've actually been one of those people that walked into the Nelson Mandela Foundation without an appointment, and I demanded to see our ex-CEO, Mr. Dango. And what I'm saying is, let us start back home, and understanding why we're here, it's very important. But it has to be a call for action. But what action? Action has to be steered towards value creation. Any action that doesn't promote Ubuntu, that is why we sit with this issue that I went to an exclusive book and I picked up a book on Ubuntu, wanting to understand this pedagogy that Tata speaks about. And it was written by Americans, published by an American company, Ubuntu. So none of us came up with that.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your perspective. I would also ask the audience to please keep your comment or your question very briefly, because we also will be running out of time. But thank you very much for your perspective. Is anyone from the back? Give us your view.
Thank you very much. My name is Tony currently the president of Youth for Human Rights in South Africa, and I also serve in the South African Youth Council. Let me start by saying, in essence, there's no group that is able to master social cohesion. It's only free-thinking individuals that step out of a block and create social cohesion amongst the communities. My comment further lies to how do we then spread communities to unite and work together. I also serve in the Interfaith Council, which is all interfaith groups. You know, today I'm shocked that we have a majority of people and also young people who are in churches. Then you ask yourself, we have such groups and people that go to church. What is the role of church to promote social cohesion in saying that people should work together? I tell you today, ZCC is sitting at over 5 million people who are part of the church. And that's the greatest church number that you can ever find in Africa. And how do we then ensure that we fight any other issues and also promote social cohesion amongst community? You might argue that because of economical issues and whatsoever, that is why. Of course, those are certain reasons. But if you fail to master the basics in terms of also participating actively as an active citizen of your country, understanding what is good governance, what is the role of a civil society. Because today, good governance is just an ideal. Democracy in South Africa, it's just an ideal. We are just dreaming about it. But it's because people have not actually taken an initiative. You ask yourself that you are doing community service. People today have taken community service and turned it to a fashion. Community service is not a fashion, but it's rather a passion. And that's what most people don't have. They just like to be seen that I've done something for this one, I've done something. But that is not the initial purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll take one more question from the floor, and then we'll go back to the panel. I think we'll take from this side. You
Okay, I'm Musambele from Soweto Jablani. I want to, especially to the audience here, young people, some of our leaders, they just wake up from nowhere and they decide that we need to nationalize something tomorrow. They are talking nationalize. But what kind of nationalization are you talking about if we are not educated as young people? We need to educate ourselves. We have a system that does not engage a child who's in a disadvantaged community. 30%. You come back, go high, go Soweto. You say, hey mama, kipasile, how much? 30%. How? And then we start cutting goats and whatsoever. But we need to promote education to the core. We need to promote education to the core. And social cohesion, go back to there was a recent issue about don't buy city press, don't buy. We don't understand freedom of speech. We decided to march that, let's go to our leader and don't buy city press, that's it. But not understanding the actual message behind that picture. Sure. So as young people, they say we are the majority, but we know behind the scenes, you submit something, they turn it down.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You can keep it. Okay. Yeah. Dr. Mo, what would you say are your views, having listened to some of these young people?
I really like the diversity of the views and the feedback and coming across. And I really wish to listen more, because I learn more from listening to young people, and I suggest we can continue the discussion with the floor, because I'm sure there's very interesting ideas coming across.
Absolutely. We'll continue with the dialogue. You can talk. Have you got a mic? Yes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Buhle Fagude. I'm from Soweto. So today we're talking about social cohesion. So I'm sure when we leave this building, we'll all know what this is about. So one of my key opinions about this, or about us leaving this building knowing what social cohesion is that we must use social cohesion as a tool to tackle every other social issue we have in South Africa. But now, how can we do that if now we do not work together as a whole? I mean, we must work together both with the government and young people. Why am I talking about this? I'm a young entrepreneur, which I own a company with my colleagues, which deals with concept developing. We sit down, we look at the issues that surround policy development, around the policies that deal with education, health, and other departments in Parliament or in South Africa as a whole. We sit down, we come up with the greatest ideas of eradicating issues that surround that. But now we do not have a platform to pitch a certain presentation. So the other thing that is a problem is that we are not given the platform to be heard. As young people, the platform to be heard must be stretched. We must be allowed to enter at a chief director's office and say, knock, knock, I have something to tell you. I have something I must share with you. As I talk about that, I'm reminded of a story where me and my colleague, we went to Pretoria and wanted to set up an appointment with the chief director of communications. We wanted to pitch a certain idea with them. We knocked. We had the PA there. And then the PA said, oh, you here for an appointment with the chief director? And said, yes. She said, you'll have to wait 6 months. Imagine. We are talking about an idea that can sort out the issues right now. We are supposed to wait for 6 months of failure. So, ladies and gentlemen, I stand and I say as well, there must be a greater investment in the youth of South Africa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. We'll take some more views from the floor. You can go. Sorry.
Oh. Hello. My name is Maboneng Precint. I'm from an organization called the Young Economists for Africa. And I think it's very interesting that we discuss social cohesion when we live in such an individualized society. And I think for me, social cohesion requires us to create organizations and institutions that can be the tools for the expression of our own common goals from the most local level. Because the problem is that we can't never have social cohesion unless we are able to subordinate the individual whim for the collective. And I think that's what social cohesion is to be built on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for being brief as well. You can go ahead.
Thanks. My name is Raylene, from co-founder of Spring Age as well. And I'm really disgusted as much as you are, Mr. Mo Ibrahim, by some of the stuff that you shared. But I also want to say that I think there is a willingness to talk on behalf of the government. Sometimes the work we do in Spring Age is exactly about aligning those constituencies of the entrepreneur who's got a good idea, of the government that's got a target to meet in the National Development Plan, and of corporate organizations that have targets to meet, whether it's through enterprise development and BE scorecards. There is in our country, and if I talk to my friend Charles who's visiting from Uganda, we're so ahead in terms of policies and frameworks that allow us to tap into. And that's the work we do on a daily basis. And we can tell you now that we do knock on government doors, on Brand South Africa's doors every day, and they are listening. I think the challenge comes in is for young people to take the time to think through and really be able to add value. You spoke about adding value. Creating organizations and tools that speak government language. We work with young people who are driven, but we also come across young people with good ideas that don't follow through. This is a problem. Government does have targets. We do have the energy. It's about really, we can't give up on aligning and keep on knocking on those doors. So I hope it twists it into a little bit of a positivity, because there is hope. We do it every day.
Thank you. Thanks. You can go ahead.
My name is Zuki Mhlauli. I'm from Life College Group. Just breaking down social cohesion. One of the issues that I think we need to address as this forum is corruption. Corruption affects the guys on the lower level, and it affects us on the upper level, and it's something that needs to be tackled, because at the end of the day, it affects service delivery. The second aspect to it, we've seen latest stats that 1 in 4 people are taking bribe, and this is something that we as this generation need to take a stand to say that I will not start purchasing from the guy in the street. selling items that you fully know that they've been stolen. It's time that we take a stand as this generation. The other aspect is that we see that youth are currently leaving schools for prostitution. And what are we doing as individuals?
Sure.
One of the things we need to take into consideration is that we are the ones that need to take the stand, that we say no sex prior marriage if we really want to make a difference. We have issues of alarming stats on HIV migration. We need to take a stand as this generation because it's affecting our tomorrow. We need to start thinking that when we build all these fundamentals, there's a tomorrow in mind. For example, there's an issue about, in terms of the global warming. We need to not just think about tackling the surface. We need to start looking at things which are sustainable as this generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I heard that you're coming from Uganda. The other, in my opening line, I talked about the issue of alienation, and that I feel that young South Africans, black South Africans in particular, are alienated from their brothers and sisters on the continent. The first time that most young people even get to know that there is Uganda, there's Ethiopia, or there's something else outside of South Africa is when they're in there, perhaps at university. What would you say? Because that has a huge impact in terms of social cohesion.
Thank you very
much. That we're forever going to be having these problems ongoing.
Thank you. My name is Charles Bwembo. I'm from Uganda. I work for a non-profit youth organization that has HIV awareness and SRH's sexual health programs. I'm here to brainstorm with Spring Edge about how we can have some collaboration back in my country. That's very interesting because when I was talking to Nelly and Raylene earlier, I didn't know many things about my country. And yet, in my high school, we did South African history, you know, the Great Trek, you know, the Boers, Shaka Zulu. It's a full paper back in my country. It's history paper 6, African history, and African history has a whole huge chapter. So I have to pass it to go to university actually. Yeah, and we kind of, because the story of South Africa is really inspiring, you know, and what you guys are doing here is beyond the borders. For example, we closely follow the health of Nelson Mandela. Most young people in Uganda have their Facebook profile pictures as Nelson Mandela's picture. So it's a very strong foundation for Africa. And I think this platform is very interesting and very important for me as well to come and borrow some ideas and take them back home because your story is inspiring. So don't take it for granted. We have some things that Dr. Professor Mr. Ibrahim.
Giving him all the titles.
Nigeria is a very good example of a 70-year-old in civil service and politics deciding things for us, the young people, and a very good example of corruption. So this platform gives me an insight into the issues back at home, and of course with Spring Edge South Africa, we try to identify common issues because some of the issues we're talking about are not only for South African youth, but they're also for Africa. Yeah. Issues of corruption, issues of young girls leaving school and going to prostitution. Unemployment is huge in my country as well. So this platform, you may maybe think about it as local right now, but it's already gone international. So I'm very happy to be here and to kind of share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take another 2 questions from the floor.
Hello, my name is Tepe Marakalala. I'm from United Youth Project. It's a non-profit organization. Social cohesion is quite an interesting topic for us as young people. Because currently, with my organization, we've come up with a project that will assist young people in accessing opportunities that they have. I mean, for instance, we've identified our first project as a bin cleaning service that is being done by young people, especially in the townships. But they're only doing it, but they don't see it as a business, they just see it as an ends to meet. So we've designed a program to say, we want to train these young people come on board, and then they'll have these programs that they will be partaking with us as an organization, meaning that they'll have an opportunity to do their matric or finish their matric. to do a driver's license, to do entrepreneurship, and also at a charge of 60 rand per month, meaning a household will pay 60 rand for a young person to come and they clean the dustbin and a drain. And then they go there once a week, 4 times in a month. And then all they need to have this as a business is that one person has to have 40 bins. And then from that, they qualify to do the programs. So young people are already doing it out there in Soweto. And then we've also realized that there are stakeholders within the communities. We talk about churches that need to come on board. We talk about the CPFs that we are working with that also need to come on board. We talk about the residents associations that also need to come on board. We talk about the municipality at a local level that also need to come on board to assist them in making sure that we empower young people. Because the only way that we young people will access these opportunities is by empowering ourselves. And empowering ourselves in a sense that we have to make sure that we comply in terms of registering and creating employment. We have to create a mindset where young people don't do CVs, but they do constructive business plan that they can approach companies. And it's been a battle, as they said, to go into government constitutions and ask them for assistance, because they'll tell you about bureaucracy. Me as a young person, I understand nothing about bureaucracy. I have a concept that will assist young people. And then also the thing is, we as young people, we need to start talking about purpose. I mean, the reason why we have such a high level of abuse in South Africa is because we don't understand purpose. What is our purpose? Do we understand the power that we have within ourselves and the will and the opportunities that are there? The opportunities are there, but you have to fight for them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll take one question from... Okay, we'll take from you. Yeah. Someone was... Okay.
Good evening. My name is Abigail Nyati. I am 22 and I'm busy with my honors in accounting. I'm involved in a leadership program. I spend time with my friends and I try to always talk positive things with everybody. But let's get honest, right? We always talk about the right thing. We know what the right thing is. And we always say, look good, and then you can do the bad thing behind closed doors. Look at our leaders. The new EF something. The new one with yeah, I mean, how do you go as a leader and threaten people's lives? And we young people have to come up and change this world. The people that are being listened to are saying, kill. So, I get it. I mean, we have great ideas, but can we clean up the face of SA? Because in South Africa we have problems. But when our leaders go outside, South Africa is okay. Who are we listening to? Are we listening to the report outside? Or should we listen to what's going on here? We're feeling ignored. Okay, I grew up in, let me just say, double world. I've seen poor, sad poor, like poor. And by God's grace, I've seen how comfortable people live, and I've seen how extreme rich people live. And the difference, I'm getting emotional, is shocking. It's shocking. And for you to have been found to have stolen from us and tell us you're going to come and save us. Really? For you to say, oh yeah, we're going to give everybody houses to have Nkandla somewhere with a lot of money, millions. Then we see our parents working hard for. And you say, we're not saying anything. When we talk, we get threatened. In SA, if you're going to say anything that's going to change this world or this country or this continent for better, you get shot down. You get shot down. If our leaders do anything wrong, we know the line, racism. Everybody steals, everybody lies. It's not a race thing, it's a human thing. It's a human thing. SA, actually the whole world needs to change their mind. Our problems are not outside. We're rich. We get minerals for days, guys, like for days. I mean, look at Angola. Oil. Angola has oil, guys. Somalia has oil. They're dying. They're killing each other. It's not minerals. It's not riches. We got trees here. We got more green than any other place. So our carbon count is down. We're talking about race. It's not race. It's our minds. We're captive in our minds, guys. I hear everything we're talking about, but the problem is, how do you view yourself as an African, as a person? Sure. How do you view the next person? The other thing is, we taught there's not enough success for everyone. That's a lie. It's a lie, guys. There's enough success for everyone. Sure. We all play a role.
Fortunately, we're running out of time, but thank you so much for your wonderful, wonderful perspective. Thank you. I'd like to take this discussion just to close off in a few seconds with the panel. If Lubuyo, you'd start and sort of sharing your final words between what has gone on the floor and here. Very briefly.
Hello. So, in a quote, speaking of Ubuntu, it's something I got from my college professor. It is important to give and help, but to truly respect the humanity of others, one must give and help in the right way. And that's something that we've kind of forgotten in recycling the whole thing of Ubuntu. We kind of bombard people with solutions they may or may not need so that we can pat ourselves on the back. The important thing is, how are we reaching out to help people, and how are we respecting the humanity of the people that we're reaching out to help?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My closing words are, we could all sit here and talk about social cohesion as this big thing, but what are we really doing in our own spaces, with our families, with our friends, the way that we interact with people at work, the way that we interact with people that we see on a daily basis, with each other? When we are here as young people, do we speak to each other like on a human level, or do we say, that person, So I think my final thing is saying, guys, let's really go back to basics and really see each other as human beings, and then we can be able to build our country for the better. Thank you
so much, Neliso.
And then from me, I think what I take from the floor is that simplicity, as you said, sister, with the language, because in most of the times we come across all those bombastic words that we really don't understand. And secondly is that whatever that is being planned for the country, I think we should be planning or developing strategic goals that are adaptive, so that whenever new things come in, we can always be easily accessible. And then one other thing I appreciate about myself is that I'm one of the few executive directors in the country that you don't have an appointment to see me. You don't have to put in an appointment. And then and then I end by saying that as the youth of today, we need to stop the critics that we always refer to as the lost generation, and become the leading generation.
Sure, thank you.
I think that in closing, what I would say is, as much as we speak about social cohesion as a concept, we need to understand that until we address the fundamental issues of inequality, as well as addressing the fact that we need to appreciate that we are diverse. In most places where you have social cohesion that has been successful, you're looking at places where it's homogenous. People are the same. They look more or less the same. We don't have that in South Africa. Or if you look at it continentally, which is a good thing. We've said unity in diversity, but we need to see how we address that. And then we also need to deal with the fact that until people feel that they're equal and are equal from an economic perspective, then it's going to be very, very difficult to attain social cohesion.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, two things I want to talk about. One is that I think the need to organize. As individuals, we cannot do much. And I was very pleased, actually, many of the people who spoke here, when they introduced themselves, they said, I'm coming from that organization, or I'm community doing. And so clearly, there's a lot of young leaders here associated with some kind of organization somewhere. That's essential. And then you need to talk with each other, because only as organizations working with each other you can do them. You talk about corruption or all important issue or public wares, what is needed, education, how to improve. You can create your own media. Somebody here said we don't have access to media or to, you have all the access. Every one of you working, you have a radio station in your pocket, you have a TV station, you have a newspaper, you are all able to communicate. You need to understand, at our age, when we're young, when I was your age, I'm getting too excited. We had 2 newspapers in the country run by the government. We had 1 radio station run by the government, 1 TV station run by the government. All this run by the Minister of Information, whose job is to inform the population of the country. And that's all the information you have. You need to have a photocopier, you need to get a permission from the police. You understand the meaning of that? So now you have a totally different society. You watch thousands of TV stations, you communicate, you create your website, you create your organ, you can create a massive platforms of communication among yourselves where discuss what's the best idea, what shall we do to help each other, what shall we do to create jobs. I fully agree, governments cannot do everything, and we need to find solutions ourselves and to help the governments, and the government should listen, of course. And believe me, many of those people in governments, not only in South Africa, everywhere in the world, they have no clue. They really have no clue where we are going. And if you look at the world today, we have a problem called short-termism. You know, they are old, and I'm talking about leaders in Europe and everywhere. Those people are only concerned about the headline tomorrow in the newspaper. The fast news cycle is driving people. All the long-term issues are just the people kicking the can down the road. Climate change, population, epidemics, people just kicking the can. And that's very dangerous, because these things are going to come and hit you. And then it's too late to sort it out. So what you need is to make your views known. And also, you need to know that your vote also counts. Unless those political parties, whatever they are, unless they respond to your views, you don't vote for them. You put your pressure on the establishment in any country, not only in South Africa. You need to have your strong political voice to protect your future and your interest, because we are not honestly protecting your future and your interest. That's the first point I wanted to make. The second point concerning Africa and South Africa. You need to understand that South Africa occupies a special place in the hearts and minds of all Africans. You were not alone in your struggle. All African countries were behind you. We hosted all your political people out there, right? And we suffered as a result. We led the boycott against South Africa. Not a single South African countries recognized the apartheid regime. We all lobbied, we all picketed all the embassies everywhere in the world. We stood outside Marks and Spencer to stop selling products from South Africa. Everybody was part of this. So in a way, we all feel South Africans. Nelson Mandela, we feel Nelson Mandela is our guy. He's not just your guy. We think of him as our guy too, okay? So it hurt us a lot when we come here and discover that you guys are so ignorant about Africa. I don't know, is it arrogance? What is it? We need really to deal with that issue. And you need to know what the future of this country is absolutely dependent on its relationship with Africa, because that is the bigger market which need to be opened. We need all these barriers to be opened to create scale. On your own, nobody is going to listen to you. This world now is dominated by China, India, Brazil, European Union, Russia, to some extent, and United States. Big blocks. No place for small guys. And don't be fooled that you are a member of the BRICS and say, oh, we joined the big club. You did not join anybody. Okay? Actually, they thought adding Nigeria. But when they did the letter BRICS, S better than N. I know O'Neill, the guy who invented the term, okay?
Oh my gosh.
Your future is really dependent on you building that. Then we have a market of 1 billion people. Okay? Then we can do things. I always say something. Everybody bragging in Africa. Oh, more wonderful. We have now more mobile phones here than all Europe. More mobile phones than all in America. La, 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 la. Great. I say, that's true. Did we produce, did you manufacture one mobile phone in Africa? You did not. Why? Because we are all subscale. We did not negotiate a contract for Africa. We negotiated contracts for 54 countries multiplied by 3 operators or 4 operators. These are all tiny contracts. In China, no manufacturer dare sell a product without building a factory, transferring know-how, teaching people how to do things, knowing that in 5 years the Chinese are going to build a better factory and they're going to kill them and sell their product back in their own markets. Still, they have to transfer technology. How much of technology transfer taking place into Africa? We are all buying everything still from outside there. And we are not exercising. Unless we come together, break the barriers, freedom of movement of people, goods, and capital across Africa, we have no place in this world. We'll be very small little guys. The smart guys, look at Europe. Those guys, whatever, they hate each other. They fought so many world wars. But economically, they open their border and they have the market. Be smart. Don't be silly. Don't be stupid. The African integration, that is the only future for all of us, and that's where the jobs should come from. So, and please, it is so damaging when some stupid guys go and put a necklace around the neck of somebody from Zimbabwe or somewhere in as we saw in television. That is so damaging to brand South Africa or whatever you do to do. You are our brothers and our sisters, and you should never do that. And I would have loved to see a major reaction when that happened from people standing up and say, what the hell are you doing to our brothers and sisters? That is how we need to. So this is issue of relationship with Africa. You need to take it to your heart. This is your future jobs, and that is the future for us. So please take it seriously. That thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Just to summarize our discussion, I think point number 1 that came across from the floor was shared values. Shared values upon which society is built and ordered. I think a lot of us know a lot about the American dream. Americans know what you mean when you say the American dream, that with hard work you can and are free to succeed. And I think the same applies for us as Africans. It is also about the restoration of common set of values and principles for our shared existence and coexistence as Africans. Someone here alluded to the issue of Ubuntu, which has been lost. And the question is, how do we restore it as young people? Point number 2 was active citizenship, which came across from the floor again. That is the responsibility of each citizen here to be a custodian and vanguard of the same values or the shared values, living out these values that are defined, and trust that each one of us sitting here in the room will respect each other's role. The third one was really around government or accountability as citizens, accountability and transparency to one another and to ourselves. What informs this if some of our leaders at the top are not held accountable? The fourth one was respect for human rights and dignity. Dignity for us as Africans, we shouldn't be the last ones to attain dignity. I think it's one of the most important things. I think Dr. Mo Ibrahim spoke about Zimbabwe. We should never forget that dignity is an essential part of our growth and development as African. Also, the other issue was the issue of not working well with our brothers and sisters in Africa, xenophobia. We cannot tolerate at all. And the fifth one is creating basic access to education and economic resources. Without those two, us as young people cannot build ourselves. And this will harbor resentment, to create divide in society unnecessarily. So that's where I think some of our priorities we need to prioritize. I'd like to thank the panel this afternoon and also to our wonderful guest, Dr. Mo Ibrahim, for his very open, frank, and honest perspectives around Africa. Please thank them for their contribution. I'd also like to encourage all of you today that let this dialogue not end here. Continue with it in your own communities, because social cohesion is a very important thing. We cannot grow. We cannot grow as Africans without it. A lot has been spoken of around Africa growing, Africa emerging, all these great things that have been written on major headlines around the world. But we need to define our own future, and that's important. I'd like to invite to close our session today the CEO of the Mandela Foundation, Mr. Silo Hatang. Please come forward.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mandla. I think we wouldn't have done this as well as you did it. So thank you for doing a good job. I thought to close this, I was struggling after doing 3 days with Mo Ibrahim. You have to always come up with something fresh, because he always comes up with something fresh. So I hope to beat him at this one. I thought I'd rather focus on this place. Why this place? I asked my team, why did we choose this place? And they told me it's about revival. And I thought, revival, renewal. Thought maybe I should come up with something else, where I looked up. What did the city do here? Most of us don't come to this side of Johannesburg. But driving in, you see something, and these are the words that came to mind when one was thinking, what did the city do here? The renewal, revitalization, revival, reawakening, recharging, rebirth, rejuvenation. So you can see here that it's about us saying and suggesting to you that it's about rejuvenating young people to participate, not tomorrow, but now. That you get reawakened to take charge and make a difference in your own community. And also, Mandla mentioned that one of the key things that we've been asking for is leadership. We look for leadership elsewhere. But what we are suggesting here is don't ask for leadership, lead. Amongst yourselves, you have leaders. Every person who stood up, they said, I am the director of such and such. Mo Ibrahim noted yesterday, speaking to a 30-something-year-old or 20-something-year-old, he said, I was director only when I was 50. So it means there's something new that's happening. And again, it's about us saying, you need to lead instead of looking up to somebody to lead us. Then one of the things that when I met Mo in Cape Town was I kept on saying, Dr. Ibrahim, this. And he then stopped me at some point and said, dude, I'm very uncomfortable about this whole thing of Dr. Ibrahim. So I said, no, but you are, Doctor. In fact, I should say, call you Ntate or Dada or something like that. So he said, that's where the problem is with you African kids, is that you have too much respect. And with that respect, you don't point out when things go wrong. I was with Prof at the time. And I think it was a key lesson that, yes, respect, But when you see that there's consistent leadership that goes into the 90s, that someone is 90 years old and they're consistently leading, you need to be saying something. And not call them Dr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, and say, no, you need to now do what needs to be done. So I think we want to again go back to what Mandla pointed out, that at the heart of everything that we're doing around social cohesion is about restoring dignity. And I want to give you a good example of what happened in July as part of Mandela Day. That Ekurhuleni East College decided that its students will build a house for a destitute family. That's restoring dignity right there. And of course, it was a pity that on the day that we handed over the house, the mother passed away the night before. So leaving kids, about 4 or 5 children, with the youngest being 5 years old. So you can see restoring dignity is an endless thing. We need to do it as young people. The house was built from foundation to roof by young people, aged between 18 and 25. So it tells you that young people can and should take leadership forward. I think it's important that we also take to heart what Mo Ibrahim said about belonging. That it's about this sense of alienation that we have. Do we learn as South Africa from the rest of the continent? And I think it's those kind of questions that we need to then be asking ourselves. And to end off, I think I'd like to quote Nelson Mandela here when he says, the call now is for each one of us to ask ourselves, are we doing all we can to help build a country of our dreams? And I think it's something that I'd like you to think about. Are you doing your bit to bring about change? Mandla and your panelists, I want to thank you. Thank Brand South Africa, Mela Matola for the leadership that you've given throughout, the staff of the Nelson Mandela Foundation and the SABC. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Just ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to have something before you go home. Thanks.
The latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything